All right, everyone, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Rinker from Newmarket PD in Virginia. He has 26 years experience in law enforcement, and he is on the board of the CIT Coalition and the Northwest Community Service Board. I am really looking forward to having him as a guest on the show. So welcome, Chief Rinker. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please call me Chris.
Okay, I can call you Chris moving forward. I'm really excited to have you. I know we've talked a little bit offline, and you have a true heart for wellness and for this career, and I'm really excited to share that message with our listeners. But I would first like to give some background into you. You've been in law enforcement for 26 years. How did you get started in this career, and what did those 26 years look like for you?
So I actually started as a volunteer and fire and rescue member locally at a really young age of 13. And then when I graduated high school, I had an opportunity to go work at the Shannon County 911 Center. Worked there for a few years and then went to another neighboring jurisdiction as a dispatcher and then started for the town of Newmarket in 1999 as a patrolman. Newmarket's just a very small community of almost 2,300 people in the northwestern part of Virginia. We're like an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours from DC. And basically, Paige, every time I got burned out, I got promoted. And I got promoted as a chief of police in 2015. And almost 10 years into that gig, it has been it's been a good career, but I didn't know how to take care of myself in the early parts and has basically brought me where I'm at today. Um, I think we'll get into that, but this what I thought the job was and what it ended up being was not the same. I wasn't quite ready for all the vicarious trauma. I didn't know what that meant. I just kind of thought all of that was a task and what you're supposed to do, and didn't take great care of myself mentally and physically, and ran into three really dark times in my life. And I'm at a different place now through that.
Thank you for sharing. And I know that we've talked a little bit about some of those things offline, and we know that this career is can be extremely stressful, the things that you go through and you see. And like you said, starting at such an early age of seeing those things and experiencing those things and cumulative stress and things that happen throughout your career. Are you willing to share some of those things that you went through and how that impacted your physical and mental wellness?
Yeah. Um, the first go around really was in 2015, right when I got promoted. Um, it was just self-pressure. Am I meeting the expectations of the community and the town? Am I meeting the expectation of the staff? I had to make the decision of who I was going to hire. And I just overcomplicated all of that. And there was some other things going on in my life. My mom was getting sick and we had some personnel issues here. Nothing major, but just they ended up being small things. And that's where I first realized that there's only one thing in this world we can control, and that's ourself. And I didn't quite have a good grip on that. And then in 2021, I found myself in a situation uh, that was really the first major time of my bag or my bucket overflowing. Um, and I can, without a doubt, say that what was going on was a contributing factor, but it was the rest of the things through my police career, fire and rescue career that I never took care of. Um, and didn't think they were a big deal then, but found out they were really eating at me and causing me to have not to be able to process things really. And I ended up in therapy. Um, it's where I first experienced EMDR therapy. Um, I'm a huge fan, huge advocate for it. And then in January of 2024, uh, was probably not probably Paige. It was the worst day of my career in the town of Newmarket. Um, my father-in-law had completed suicide. He lived in the town of Newmarket, and it seems like a really simple decision, but I really struggled with making a decision if I was going to be the police chief or was I going to be a husband and a father. Um, I'm very blessed. I have been married for a long time and I have two small children. And that day, I made a decision to be a father and a husband. I have been super blessed through my journey as a police chief to have really good people that do a good job. Um, give my to give the agency a little pat on the back. We made it 9.5 years with the same staff, no turnover.
Right.
Uh, Now we're talking a six-man full time staff, but a six-person department, and doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a pretty big deal, I think. And my bag overflowed again through this. Um, there was a lot of things that I was struggling with in this time frame of my father-in-law completing suicide. Ended up back in therapy. This time it was easy for me to know that I needed to go, not to sit around and be like, what's wrong with me? How do I get ahead of this? Um, because after 2021, I figured out that my purpose is to be a police chief and a police officer, emergency responder, but really my why is to be the best husband and father that I can be. Um, and I knew that for me to be the best husband and father, that I needed to take care of myself. And we as leadership and as emergency responders, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of anybody else. And it starts with us. That's where it's important. And after 2021, I got to go to some trainings through Struggle Well and Boulder Crest that I learned about PTG, post-traumatic growth.
Mhm.
Uh, because I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and given medicine in 2021 after taking a little survey. And I was honest about it and answered the questions because I knew I wasn't in a good place and didn't think that the results would, or survey says, right? You have anxiety and depression and PTSD. And my PTSD is from vicarious and communitive trauma.
Mhm.
And that's when I learned to that we need to grow from our trauma and be mindful of our gratitude and not living an unbalanced narrative. When you're mindful of your gratitude and thinking about that daily and some of the tips they have in there, like the days get better. It's not all rainbows and unicorns every day, but the days do get better.
First of all, thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate that. And there's a few things that I wanted to kind of touch on. I know one of the things that I say all the time, and you just made me think of this in such an entirely different perspective. So thank you for that, because I think things can go both ways. And I always teach in wellness that small things can lead to big impact. You know, like the small things that you do can have this big positive impact. But I think that in you speaking to me, I realize, and of course this is like obvious now, that it could go the other way too. And there are small things that happen over time that eventually lead to that big impact of what you said of your bucket overflowing. And so I think it's important for people to understand that it doesn't always have to be a huge event for your bucket to overflow and for you to find yourself in that position. And so how can we put in resources that help to mitigate that and help to kind of empty that bucket over time? So I appreciate you putting that in perspective because I'm like, wow, we talk about cumulative stress so much, but it's the small things over time that lead to that big event or that big impact of, you needing resources. I know you talked about a few things that you have used, one being talk therapy, and you saying that that was useful. And then you talked about EMDR. I think that EMDR is something that's emerging right now, that a lot of people who have done it have had great experiences with it, but maybe not a lot of people understand what it is. Are you willing to share just a little bit of your experience and like what it is and how that's helped you?
Um, I'll give it my best small town police
Yeah,
chief
please.
version,
Yeah, please do
right?
it. Yeah, please.
So your brain has a right side and a left side, and they're connected, and through trauma they disconnect, right? And if you think about a traumatic incident, a traumatic call, maybe that's just right here in the forefront, right? Like you're seeing it on a 75-inch TV a couple feet away. What EMDR does is it helps you process that and pushes it out like a mile away on a postage stamp. So you really don't forget about anything. Um, and it's just not in the forefront. And again, Paige, I'm not a clinician, and somebody else could better describe that, but it can be eye movement stimulation, it can be hand stimulation. Um, there's some other techniques, and you're right. You you're hearing more and more about it. And I believe that originated with military veterans and folks in the armed forces to help them. And then they realized, hey, there's emergency responders and victims of crime and other individuals that can benefit from this technique and tool. And I have several hours involved in EMDR therapy, and I've had people tell me, "Hey, it didn't work for me." I don't know that I would just give it one shot and say it didn't work. I would go back. You have to get in a or you have to get in a mindset to to think about it, and it helps you identify really what are the pieces of that event that are um, lingering on and won't go away. And one of the examples that I really struggled with being in law enforcement and fire and rescue at an early age of 13. And I've had CPR training since I was 14 years old and every other year since then, right? And I would get so frustrated and mad because I had to go sit through it. Because sadly, I've done it a lot of times. And EMDR took me to a place that some of my frustrations came from when I was 15 years old. I did mouth to mouth CPR with no mask on a gentleman. And I had some frustrations from that because that was many moons ago before career staff in our area. And it was like 35 minutes before the first ambulance got there. And that's one of the things that EMDR helped me with, process that call from I'm dating myself here, Paige, but like 30 years ago. And it just hung in there. It hung in my bag, right? That was probably one of the first things that laid in the bottom of my bag or my bucket. And that's what EMDR helped me process daily too. There's been many incidents in the town of Newmarket and other things that really just didn't think bothered me. And through talk therapy they would come up and basically be a trigger for something else. And we would do EMDR. I would do EMDR therapy.
I think that was a perfect explanation, and I appreciate that. And I know you're not a clinician, but I appreciate you sharing your experience with that. And anyone who's listening, it might be something that they can try if they need it as a resource. But one of the things that we talked about that I'm really interested in talking to you about, and you said it earlier, is this idea of PTG or post-traumatic growth. And it's really interesting because I didn't know that this had a term for a long time. When I was younger, I always tried to, um, live with this mentality of like, I'm growing from the things that have happened to me, and I'm using those things as opportunity to help others. And, through my time now in the wellness space, I'm very familiar with this term, but I think that a lot of people still don't understand it. We talk about PTSD and PTSI, but there isn't a lot of, post-traumatic growth conversations. So are you able to kind of dive into your experience with post-traumatic growth and all of the things that you have gone through that have been, major traumatic events in your life and how you're able to now use those as opportunities to help others and to lead, your organization.
Yeah, it first started with me going to 2 day struggle well training at my local regional police academy. That is struggle well is a 2 day, 5 day training by Boulder Crest. Boulder Crest is located here in Virginia, and they've started these trainings. I think they originally originated in Florida, but now they're all over the nation. That it we focus as a society on PTSD, but beyond that, it's hey, here's some medication to help you right with your depression, your anxiety, or what have you, whatever it could be. We really don't focus on what that growth looks like
Mhm.
and how do you grow from the trauma. And Boulder Crest really that's really changed how I see things and hear people, or not hear people, but how I saw things. Um, you mentioned my role with CIT, and that all originated in 2014, where I first learned to be empathetic and what that empathy was. And then on top of the PTG, the post traumatic growth, it helps to not live that unbalanced narrative where the why me, the world is wrong. Um, and with that is your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your financial health. When those things are thriving, your inside spiritual flame is is brighter, more intense, which helps with that growth. And just not being the victim, right? Not playing that victim card is and being mindful about that helps. And I go back to last year when my father-in-law completed suicide. You know, that was very difficult for me because he wasn't just my father-in-law. He was somebody that came to my house. He was like a good friend. Like I really hit a home run with not just my wife, but my father-in-law too. And it was difficult and having struggled well the 2 day and the 5 day and having a mindset of PTG helped me through that process without a doubt. Um, yeah.
And I like that I'm when you're saying this, it's interesting to me because like I think anyone listening has been in that like victim mindset. Like I know I have for sure. For a long time, all the things that I had gone through in my life, I had that question, why me? And feeling like everything's against me and that I'm the victim of this. And in many ways, like as a kid, there were things that, happened to me that I didn't have control over. But when I had that mindset, I was very emotionally reactive. I was very negative. I was very nasty. Like I had hardened. I didn't have empathy for people at all. So all the things that you're saying, I'm like relating that to my life. And maybe if there's anyone who's listening who has been there too, it's like you do get into that mindset. And when anyone would come to me with things that they had gone through, I'm like, what you're going through is nothing. Like you haven't gone through what I've gone through. I very much had that mentality. And I agree with you that when you can switch that and you can say, you know what, like I'm not going to let these things impact my health in this way. And I am going to use these as opportunities to grow and to be a better person for myself, for my family. I'm going to become empathetic of what people are going through in their lives because maybe it's not the same, but everyone goes through things and everyone deserves to have, people who are in their corner to be there for them. And so I appreciate you saying that. And I do highly recommend it for anyone who's going through a hard time of trying to learn what that concept is and how you can implement that into your life because it has been completely life changing of, having a completely different mindset.
Yeah, and we should never compare what's traumatic to you may not be traumatic to me, and
Yeah.
like you and I talked about this. I am very grateful for your efforts and what you're doing in my world, and and how you have taken what happened to you and turned it to put effort into making a difference in other people's lives. I do appreciate you, Paige.
Thank you.
And the 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 PTG and the whole struggle well is it's just a mindset change.
Hmm.
Um and it takes a little while. And it's the when after the 2 day, I was like, I need this 5 day. And the 5 day it was hard. It was long days and would just feel exhausted when I got home from my brain thinking about all these things and um, all the trainers and the guides and the whole organization is awesome. And the just taking care of yourself helps not to live that negative mindset that the world is wrong and I'm the victim. And I have it in my office on a sign. I have it on my iPad, a sticker. But when you stay in your lane, like in your lane and talk about what you know, the days are also better. I
Hmm.
recently told my kids there's only two free things in this world, right? Staying in your lane and minding your own business. And when you do that, it helps with you to continue to grow and to be positive and have a positive mindset. It's easy in our world in the police and fire and rescue to we're seeing all the bad, hearing all the negative, um, to get in a dark place.
Hmm.
And it's easy to go down that road to drink, substance abuse, to put it all away. And the 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 job has not been good to me, but I haven't been good to myself. And sadly, I didn't get this skill set or this thought process, this mindset until the end of my career, I think. Um, and I wish I would have had these tools and this mindset in 1999 or when I was 15. Um, and you said something that I want to go back to is, and I've said this a couple times, that there's only one thing in this world that you can control, and it's yourself. But with that and the PTG, do you respond or react? When you respond, it's better for you, right?
Hmm.
You're maybe not angry or I think about the when you go to a restaurant and whatever you ordered is not there, right? It's easy to react. That's their job. Why didn't they get it right? But when you're living in that good mindset, like things happen. It's not the end of the world. It's really not. And you don't know where that person's at, right? Like I've came to work and not been in a good mindset, but I was taught that you always go to work and, you know, basically suck it up, buttercup. But we don't have to live that style. We don't have to work in that style anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the more conversations we have like this, then the more awareness there is around it. I think that step number one is always like awareness, like where is your mindset and how are you responding to things? And then I love that you talked about the easy way versus, I don't want to say the hard way, but the more challenging way or the way that takes maybe a little bit more awareness. And we see that all the time. When we talk about mental wellness, even physical wellness, the the mind always wants to take the easy way out with things, right? So you're talking about some of those unhealthy coping mechanisms before. So we talked about, drinking or escaping or numbing. Like that's the easy way. That's the way where you don't have to deal with the things. And it's the opposite of training mental resiliency and growth, right? It's like that escapism and even the younger generation, like scrolling, like that's numbing, avoiding things. And then, you said that a few different times of like, it's easy to just react to something. It's harder to train yourself emotional regulation and, choosing how you want to respond. And it's a practice and it starts with awareness. Then, of course, there's tools and resources that can help you to get there. I love the idea of a positive mindset. And I've said this a couple times on this podcast, but it's something that stuck with me. There's another chief, his name's Chief Borges. He's in California, and he put it into an acronym, and it's actually science-based, and it's true, and it's called PMA, positive mental attitude, and it's actually backed by science, and it's just what you said. It's like if you can control your thoughts and how you are responding to a situation with a positive mindset, with a mindset of gratitude, which you said a couple times, how can we be grateful for the things that we do have? How can we be grateful for the opportunity to wake up today and to make a difference? And, having that positive mindset, I think is a game changer. And it is learned behavior. It does take effort, especially when things are going bad, or things are challenging. It's so much harder to do it in the challenging times. But if you can lean back on your training and you can have that mental training, and you can strengthen that over time and have that consistency in that practice, it just makes it easier when things are hard. So I appreciate you explaining all of that. I did want to talk about one thing that you did, and it always makes me smile when I hear this, but I believe it was in 2022, maybe you got
Baneli,
a new friend.
yeah,
So you got a service dog named Baneli, and I know that Baneli has been a big part of your wellness and your growth, for yourself and for your organization. So are you able to talk about Baneli a little bit?
yeah, sure. Baneli is an almost 5-year-old yellow lab now. Baneli came from Mutts with a Mission. It's a nonprofit organization in Virginia Beach that trains service dogs and facility dogs. Um, The service dog portion is for me, obviously, but facility, the Code of Virginia has a code section that's dedicated just to facility dogs that allows him to go into court and provide love to a victim during testimony.
Mm.
So again, Newmarket just being a small town, PD, and a small community, this was the first for Mutts with a Mission to put a dog in a small organization like this. Um, but his job is basically the best way to sum it up into top words is he's emotional breaching tool. To build a connection with that individual and to meet them where they are at the moment, and then allow me to maybe give some advice or just for them on their face. We utilize them for court, victims of crime, building an interaction with an individual in crisis that's in a semi-safe environment. We'll take him to the hospital in Virginia. We have what's called emergency custody order and temporary detention orders, and it's a terrible process in Virginia. Um, but we where we have to stay at the hospital for long periods of time. So uh, I'll take Baneli and hang out with those individuals. Or Baneli and I also will respond to critical incidents after critical incidents. Also involve shootings, um, just whatever terrible thing a emergency responder may experience, and allows them to take a moment and let him love on them and rub him and just to forget what's going on in the moment.
And I actually, for anyone who's listening, I saw him before we hopped on this podcast, and I think it's undeniable how happy dogs make you and how they make you forget about what's going on. I think you're exactly right. It brings you into the present moment. You're like so excited and they're so innocent and they're so happy to see you. They bring you this joy. And so I love that that's something that you've been able to incorporate within the community for people who are struggling, but then also something that's helped you and the people within your organization who are maybe stressed or going through a hard time. You have talked about a lot of really, really amazing ways to prioritize your wellness. We talked about talk therapy, EMDR, PTG, and having a positive mindset with gratitude. We talked about Baneli and his ability to help de-stress. How have all of those things helped you to be a better leader? And how have all those things helped you to incorporate a culture of wellness or various wellness resources within your organization?
That's a really good question. And it's because I think about this often. I just read an article this morning from 2015 that was when I got promoted. The local paper did a story, and I said I just want to be a good leader. I think those difficult times for me has gave me appreciation for very difficult times, not putting myself in someone else's shoes, but most importantly, not forgetting where I come from, giving me the power and the knowledge to just listen to my people
Mm,
and and hear where they're at in the moment and try to do my best to help them through with whatever they're going through. My PD is a little different where I still have to go out and answer calls here and there, and just being mindful that I'm not too good for that crash report, right? I'm not too good to issue that summons or take that larceny report. But it's definitely helped me with my active listening skills and not just jumping to conclusions, Paige, and responding instead of reacting to situations. One thing that I've learned is people just want to be heard. It's
mm,
the people that are in the community, but it's also the people that work for us, and um they don't work for me, they work with me. And just because my badge is gold and um I'm the unit one or whatever, that doesn't make me any better than anybody else. It doesn't. And I don't put myself on some platform bigger than them. My responsibility is a whole lot bigger than, or a whole lot more than theirs. But in the end, their solid work and commitment to the town of Newmarket and their pride for our organization and our community makes my day better, if that makes sense.
100% makes sense. And I'm smiling, and if no one's watching the video, like can see like I can tell that you care so much. And I love the humbleness of like we're a team and they don't work for me, they work with me. I really like that messaging. And I'm circling back to something you said earlier, but you've had full staff for, and the same staff for a long time. And I think that that's a testament to the culture that you've created within your organization. It's a place where people want to stay for a long period of time. And so I think that that's a huge accomplishment. I know we also talked offline a little bit about, you know, when you take care of yourself, you're able to help the members of your community better and your customer service is better. And so creating a culture of wellness within your organization so that when they go out into the streets and into the community, they're responding in a more impactful and effective way.
Yeah, there's been some talk on LinkedIn and some videos that are surfacing that are that I think that leadership starts with who the leader sees in the mirror,
Mm,
right? It's the leadership of Newmarket PD starts with me. If I'm not doing well, I'm not taking care of myself, then it's going to trickle down through the department. And this new, I don't think it's a theme. I think it's just real talk that we don't have a recruitment problem in law enforcement and fire and rescue. We have a retention problem. And the
mm,
retention problem starts with leadership. And I say this in both professions that a lot of times leadership sweat the small things that in the end of it really doesn't make a difference. Um, where we don't sweat the big things. And what's a small thing to me may not be a small thing to another leader, kind of like the trauma.
sure.
Uh, but I know what it's like to be on my last shift on a 3-day break and hold that case report, right? Like I know that. And there's consequences. But in the end, is it because I wanted to get home to my kid's birthday party, my kid's uh dance recital. Um, and we can't skip every report, but when you sit down and don't just jump right into that conclusion of why you didn't do it, and let's talk about your weekend and what you and your family did, or you and your spouse, and then hey, don't forget about that crash report or that case report. I think it helps with the culture and the agency. We're a 6-person department, but we have to run our agency just same as a 1,000-person agency. Um, Myself and the people that work in this building, we all wear many, many hats. It's just not a patrolman. We don't have a full-time investigator. We don't have crash reconstruction. We don't have a team that just works motor vehicle crashes or sex crimes. That's on us. And small town police work is tough. Small agency police work is tough. And I know now the long-term effects of that small agency, but there is a lot of good in this agency too, or it comes from working in a small town.
And I wanna kind of shout you out a little bit. And I know that you weren't anticipating this at all, but to your point of it starts with leadership and the things that you're exuding, the things that you're prioritizing, you were not only nominated for, and tell me if I get this wrong, it was the 2025 Public Safety Excellence Award,
Yeah,
and and you won.
I did.
And I think that that is a compliment. That is a huge compliment to the work that you do. And I know that you didn't do that to be recognized. You did that because you are prioritizing yourself, your organization, you care about the community, you wanted to do a good job for the right reasons, not for winning any sort of award or accolade. But I do want to shout you out because the work that you're doing is obviously excellent for you to win the 2025 Public Safety Excellence Award. So,
I do appreciate that, and I don't do anything for me. Um, I honestly feel that it's my journey. One of I talked about my purpose and I talked about my why, and I think your purposes are established by something greater than us,
mhm,
and it's kind of how we get on journeys, right? And my journey has been the town of Newmarket and a law enforcement officer and now the chief. But I'm always mindful about how do I improve the quality of life within inside my agency, but also my community.
mhm,
And I have been blessed my entire career to be around good people, people that I trust, and um, my difficult times, my bag or bucket overflowing has allowed me the strength to look at someone and basically grab them by the vest and be like, I know this is the worst day of
mhm.
your life, but I'm going to walk with you and help you get through this because this is not the last day. It's not the end.
Yeah.
And all of our worst days look different. Um, but in the end, they're it's the worst day. And offer hope. That's the biggest thing, offering hope and helping these people where they're at. And I truly don't care if you're an emergency responder or you're a citizen or a passerby in the community. We're going to do whatever we can to help you.
Yeah.
And it's not about Chris Rinker page. It's not. It's just about doing whatever I can to help somebody at that moment.
And I think that, I mean, everyone I talk to that's in your position has that servant heart of like, how can we help people? And I think that that's what calls you to this profession is to be in service of others and to help others and to make an impact, within your community. So I appreciate you sharing that. I have one final question for you, and you had said this earlier, but you said, I wish I would have had these resources earlier in my career. I wish I would have known how to do these things earlier in my career. That is exactly why I started this podcast. I've had endless conversations with leadership who have had those same comments of like, I wish I would have, and maybe it would have XYZ. Maybe my bucket wouldn't have overflowed 3 times or whatever it was. And so I would love to hear from you. What words of wisdom do you have for someone who is earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier, or maybe something that you did find later that helped you that could help someone who's younger in their career.
It's just their commitment to their own well-being, their own taking care of their self, making their self a priority over the agency, over everything else. Um, and what does that look like? It looks like taking care of your physical health, your mental health, financial health, staying within your means, your gratitude, um, and not letting the compassion fatigue overpower all of that and being mindful or knowing what you can control and staying in your lane. When you're doing those things and you know, it starts with leadership again. We sadly we see this on LinkedIn all the time um that this new wellness group or this new peer support program, or they're bringing in clinicians or they're bringing in dogs, right, for their people. And it starts with that leadership. Those are all great programs and good things for agencies. But if the leadership never took care of themselves and are buying in on these programs, To me, Paige, like it's just another one of those things that we're just checking the box for the people in our agencies. Um, we leadership normally at the executive leadership, you're above that 15-year mark, right? We didn't do a good job of taking care of ourselves. We didn't know how to do it. But we can't use that. I didn't know what I didn't know forever because there's a lot of good things out there.
Mhm.
We, as human beings, know what it's like to go home and isolate ourselves from our families, not wanting to leave the house or drinking a 12 pack every evening. Um, we can recognize that. The courage is not reaching out for help. The courage is being like, I mean, this is terrible, but it to me it takes more courage to be like, oh, I don't have a problem. I'm fine, right? Um, instead of reaching out. But the one thing that I think is often forgot is executive leadership and a supervisor role is lonely.
Mhm.
It's lonely at the top. And you have to surround yourself with 5 to 6 people that you trust, which is not something that law enforcement has a trait of.
Mhm.
Um, but this 5 to 6 is the person that when you need to move the couch, you call and they're like, "Hey, what's up? Can you come over at 2?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm on the way." Not, "What do you need?"
Yeah.
Um, and finding those people to talk to on a daily basis. There's things that go on in my life that I can't talk to my police sergeant about or someone within my agency. But I have 5 to 6 people in my life, and not everyone is in law enforcement. They don't need to be. I don't need people to understand what I do. I just want a listening ear
Mhm.
because leadership's not good at that. We have that suck it up buttercup mentality.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do love all of your words of wisdom, but I do love the idea of like, it doesn't always have to be someone in leadership or in law enforcement at all, that you should have a community around you that are there for you. Because I do think that that's something that people don't do. I think they isolate a lot. So I appreciate all of your words of wisdom, but that one stuck out to me for sure. And thank you. Thank you for your time and for sharing your story and the things that have helped you and the things that you're doing within your organization and your community. I really do appreciate your time so much.
Well, again, I appreciate you, Paige, and your efforts and where you come from. Uh, you have an impact on us and this police world, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll run into each other at some point.
I hope so.
Thank you so much.